We rarely talk about boxing here on the channel. There was sort of 15, maybe 20 years ago. I don't want to say boxing would be a weekly or even a monthly topic, but we would definitely talk about it more than we do today. When I was growing up, boxing was a huge sport, a massive draw on pay-per-view. The sport was even bigger before my time, back in the days of Frazier and Ali. There was this certain appeal to boxing that we don't get with other sports. NFL's always going to be number one. We all know that, but we see big games every Sunday in the NFL. There's just a different feeling when you're going into a big fight. All the shit talking leading up to the event. Hell, sometimes the guys on the undercard put on a better performance than the main event does. There's always been this kind of seedy underworld in the sport of boxing. To be honest with you, the foundation of the sport can get a bit confusing. There's all these different titles: IBF, WBF, WTF, OMG, OMB. In the past, there have been allegations of fixed fights, ties to the mob, but none of that shit mattered. When there was a big fight, millions of people were willing to part with their money to watch it. Unfortunately, that's no longer the case. When is the last time there was a big fight in boxing? An event that caught the attention of the mainstream, the entire country? For me, I'd have to say Floyd Mayweather-Conor McGregor back in 2017. That fight was huge, over 5 million buys on pay-per-view. It was also the beginning of the end for boxing. Now don't get me wrong, Mayweather-McGregor, that was a legit fight. People had long debated who would win between a boxer and a mixed martial artist. But that fight opened the door wide open to the bullshit, to the circus that boxing has become. When the biggest star in the sport of boxing is Jake fucking Paul, you have a serious problem. I don't doubt his work ethic. I don't doubt that Jake Paul takes boxing seriously. But he has turned the sport into a joke. And it's not just him. Over the last few years, we have been bombarded with celebrity boxing matches. Desperate celebrities looking for an easy cash grab, begging you to give them money for you to not be entertained. Who in the hell wants to watch Lamar Odom fight Aaron Carter? Aaron Carter is all of 120 pounds. Better not book that fight outside in Chicago. Aaron Carter gets knocked on his ass when there's a strong gust of wind. Who wants to watch Uriah Hall versus Le'Veon Bell? Le'Veon Bell belongs on a football field, not in a boxing ring. Next month, we're going to be treated to disguised toast versus point crow. What the hell is that? One of those belongs in a toaster, the other in a nest built by the Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe. But KC, there's always been celebrity boxing matches. This amazing idea goes back decades. Yeah, it does. That doesn't mean it's a good thing. We've never seen it with this much frequency either. From 1979 to the Mayweather-McGregor fight in 2017, there were 26 celebrity boxing matches. I was having trouble with the math, so I contacted my boo, Mina Kimes. Hey KC, Mina Kimes, pretend NFL analyst. I have been crunching these numbers. That equals less than one celebrity boxing match per year. Before I let you go, I have a question. Have you been able to reach Jackie Mahomes? I'm a little bit worried. I haven't seen him foo-foo dancing on the sidelines all season. Yes, Mina, my sources tell me his brother Patrick chopped off his legs. Jackie is now in a wheelchair and he will be playing in the WNBA next season. Since 2017, there have been 30 celebrity boxing matches on pay-per-view, with a third of those classified as professional fights. I'm sorry. KSI versus Swarms is not a professional fight. Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson is not a professional fight. It is a fucking circus disguised as a boxing match. Let me ask you this. What other sport allows this to happen? I don't see celebrity football on pay-per-view. The NBA, they host celebrity basketball games during All-Star Weekend, but no one watches. I don't see celebrities jumping into the octagon in UFC. You think Dana White would allow that to happen? You think Dana White would risk tarnishing the legacy and reputation of the UFC to put on a spectacle? He tried that twice with CM Punk after CM Punk went through years of MMA training. It didn't work. There's a reason Dana White has refused to allow Jake Paul into UFC. The kid's been begging. He's been begging for Dana White to let him into the octagon or let him box one of his fighters under contract. Dana White refuses to do it. Why? Number one, he knows it ain't legit. Number two, Dana White would have everything to lose while Jake Paul has nothing to lose and everything to gain. If Colby Covington beats Jake Paul, he's supposed to win. Jake Paul beats Colby Covington, it either legitimizes him as a fighter or creates the perception that UFC fighters ain't all that tough. When Jake Paul first started boxing on pay-per-view, he was a success. His fight with Ben Askren drew 1.5 million buys. Somehow his fight with Nate Robinson drew 1.6 million. I can't figure that out. That fight happened in November 2020. Most shitfucks at the time were being locked down while the rest of us were living freely. Perhaps they were bored on a Saturday night, their wanker tank was running on E, so they took a break and watched a pretend boxing match. The reason Jake Paul was successful in the beginning was because of the curiosity factor. There was a certain novelty to it. I mean, make no mistake about it, Jake Paul is a star. I'll never take that away from him. People wanted to see if this kid who made it on YouTube could actually fight. Now, I wouldn't call him a great boxer, damn sure wouldn't call him a professional, but Jake Paul is a respectable amateur boxer. But the problem with novelty and curiosity, it eventually wears off. If people pay money and you don't entertain them the first time, most are willing to give you another chance, chalk it up to a bad fight. But when they pay again and you disappoint them twice, it's over. It's over. Before last weekend, Jake Paul's last two fights were against Tyron Woodley. The first matchup last August drew 500,000 buys. For some reason, they thought fans were clamoring for a rematch. Well, KC, the fight ended in controversy. It was a split decision. Yeah. You see, controversy's only created when people care. You know that old saying, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is around, does it really make a sound? The same thing applies here. When your fight ends in a split decision, but no one gives a fuck about it, is it really controversial? The answer is no. And we got all the proof we needed in the rematch. The rematch took place last December. They titled the event, Leave No Doubt. There was no doubt left over after this bullshit. It was all but confirmed. Jake Paul is not a draw in boxing. Only 200,000 people paid for this garbage. Now, to his credit, Jake Paul did not let this get him down. I mean, seriously, I give him credit for soldiering on, not giving up. He tried to schedule a couple of fights this summer, but they were canceled for various reasons. Tommy Fury couldn't get into the country. That fight was supposed to happen at the Garden in New York City. My sources tell me authorities in New York City would not allow him off the plane because he forgot his COVID mask. They offered him a round of Fauci fucking, but for obvious reasons, Tommy Fury turned that offer down. Which leads us to Jake Paul's fight against Anderson Silva last weekend. Look, Anderson Silva is a legend in UFC. Dude held the middleweight championship for 7 years. During his prime, Anderson Silva was unbeatable. But he's 47 years old. Jake Paul is 25. I don't care how great you were, it is damn near impossible for a 47-year-old to step into a boxing ring and defeat someone in their prime. Your body just can't handle it. It's the reason Chuck Liddell had to retire. He could no longer take a punch. The official buy rate hadn't been released yet, but according to Jake Paul, this fight only drew between 200,000 and 300,000 buys. Kid, it's over. It's over. It would be one thing if Jake Paul was a legit professional boxer. Just because you're paid to be there, that does not make you a professional. There's a huge difference between an amateur boxer and a professional boxer. Go watch his 2 fights against Tyron Woodley. You tell me if that even comes close to resembling professional boxing. It is unfortunate to say, but the sport of boxing's dead. Once you lose your legitimacy, it is almost impossible to get it back. Like I said earlier, It's the reason Dana White refuses to allow Jake Paul into the UFC. UFC fighters train their entire lives. MMA is not something that you just decide to pick up at 22 years old and you're just going to become a professional MMA fighter. It doesn't work that way. It takes years and years of training to reach the UFC level. There are some great fighters in UFC that never reach the pinnacle because they're not good enough. I don't doubt that Jake Paul takes boxing seriously, but it doesn't make him a professional. He didn't do it alone, but he has ruined this sport. Boxing is no longer taken seriously. They went from Ali, Lennox Lewis, Roy Jones, Mayweather, Tyson, Foreman, Holyfield. Boxing went from legends to something called Blueface, Aaron Carter, something called I Did a Thing, and something called Jake Paul. Let me know what you think. Jake Paul, once again, bombs at the box office. Will he ever have a successful career in boxing? Hell, will the sport survive long enough for Jake Paul to have a successful boxing career? I think boxing is dead. What about you? Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, kc_btl84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys later.